development manager, we already have a quarterly newsletter that's gone out a few times to the Department of Commerce, property owners, and businesses. There would be a section about the whole progress of the project that would be incorporated there on a quarterly basis. We also anticipate having a web presence on our city website. Okay, here it is today. Here's where we're happening. They have also proposed, we're having a kickoff meeting next week, if this is all approved tonight, and we can apprise both entities of the desire that you have to have more formal updates that are very clear and concise and fairly simple to understand, which they shouldn't have a problem providing.
Commissioner McBoyd?
Yeah. Just a couple things. With the Matthews contract, that's, if I'm not mistaken, it's $350,000. Is that correct? Roughly?
Yes.
Close enough. I agree with Commissioner Zerdy. Let's be pretty specific about the timing of the site visits. And I agree with Commissioner Maxwell. Well, let's be quite specific on the deliverables list. And I've had enough familiarity with contracts that if you don't do it now, it isn't in the contract.
Yeah.
And, right, so deliverable list, schedule for the deliverable list, and site visit timing, all of those, I think, I don't know whether we're ready to approve it right now, but we want pretty strong assurances that those will be in there.
It appears
It's quite
to
a
be
bit
a
of money.
consensus on that, I just,
Yeah.
by the head nods up here.
I would be very, thank you, Madam Mayor, I would be very comfortable if William would tell us tonight when we can have that in black and white, the deliverables, and
What we can do is provide you a summary of what are the scopes of services that both entities have provided that will be, that's already attached to the contract. And they're pretty illustrative. They go into some detail on all the various tasks on each different phase. We can provide a synopsis of that in a bullets form that's fairly simple and provide that back to you probably within a couple of weeks at the most.
But the important part is that when we say, okay, detailed by phase, then the important part is, and how long does that phase last? And then, I mean, there's gotta be a timeline in phase. They have a Gantt
Shows
chart,
where
right?
everything is supposed to happen.
Okay.
I think I speak for all of us that I don't think we're looking for sort of an informational summary. We're looking to see in the contract that those deliverables, timing, and site visits are
And they're
spelled out a little bit more detail than what's in there now.
So you've been through the A's and B's, and you want more than that.
I was trying to pull it back up at the moment, so I can't speak to that. I'll let the others mention. And I do have one more specific issue.
Go ahead, Commissioner McBoyd.
My other one was that when, I remember that in the CDM study, which I believe you mentioned we spent, well, we had a grant for it, but I think we spent $750,000 on it, so maybe it was $250,000, I don't know. It was a fair chunk.
The grant was $250,000, I think we matched with $250,000, so the whole study was $500,000.
Yeah. As I recollect, having attended a number of those meetings, there was quite a bit of emphasis on Bobwell Road, understandably, that's sort of the backbone of this thing. But in the discussions about Bobwell Road, there was quite a bit of emphasis that this is comprehensive sort of thing. You need to do the road service, but you also need to provide drainage. And as we perhaps forget, but sometimes remember, that whole Park of Commerce is fairly low-lying, and it's adjacent to a ridge to the east of it. So drainage is an issue. And what struck me in the CDM presentations was there were a number of times where it was pointed out that there are more innovative things that can be done with on-site type drainage, whether, and I forget the names, Commissioner Zerdy will probably help me out on it, but there were some imaginative things that were suggested as possibilities. And the part that really caught my ear was the comment was made repeatedly, if you build in some of those more innovative, quote-unquote, environmentally friendly green drainage aspects, your chances of getting straight Department of Transportation type grants go up. So basically, if you're asking for road money, but you're showing that you're looking ahead a little bit on how you're doing the drainage, now, whether that's still true, whether that was the climate then and that climate has long since gone, I don't know, but I think we should keep that in mind.
It's a double-edged sword. One of the things that we're, why I brought the discussion item 3 forward is that the county has performance standards for their roadways, which are fairly typical engineered base. we have already created what is a tentative roadway section that incorporates some of the items you're talking about, a bioswale, some permeable surface elements, possibly a retention pond kind of idea to provide a sense of place in the Park of Commerce. That would normally be allowed under a county design project, but they're more than willing to support our design, what we want to do. If we agree to take over the ownership of the road and maintain it once it's all finished, and that will help us get into the line to be on the capital improvement plan, hopefully by September of next year, on the county. And you are right, there are a variety of sources under EPA, which remember they came and spoke to us last year about the critical needs of the city. Park of Commerce is one of them. The lady, Ms. Keller, has been providing us grant opportunities that once we have a project, they know how much it's gonna cost, we can apply for some money. EDA also has some things, so I think there will be opportunities. The monies are not great when you put them all together, combine them. It could be as possibly up to $1 million altogether, which is 20% of the project.
I'm very glad that you're keeping up on it, that you're keeping the contact with EPA, and that you're keeping the awareness of those. If we think a bit more holistically and are clever about it, we may have some better funding opportunities and do a better project. And then I would argue that in terms of part of our overall flavor and what we try to sell ourselves as a city, including selling the Park of Commerce, is if we can sell that we have paid attention to some green type things, that gives us better creds for attracting different types of companies and so on too. So I think there's no downside to doing it, and there are several economic and strategic upsides to it. So.
All right, last chance here, guys. We're 40 minutes into this. Let's go. Commissioner Marso.
Okay. First, on page 10, in 1, the design time frame is assumed to be 12 months. Also, line 4, construction frame time assumed to be 15 months. What if we get into 30 months? What if we get into, I think I have a problem with the word assume.
Well, we're gonna have to, we have to make sort of an assumption. You couldn't put a concrete deadline. We do have the 30 months. There are some protections and safeguards in there for the city if things drag out that are the fault of the contractor, not the city.
What if it goes out?
We have to keep in mind that we are going to be collaborating with the county, and there are some unknowns there.
Okay.
We did speak with them, and we think that actually 30 months is far more than what we're going to really need.
Okay.
And so that's part of our discussions with both firms and the teams we have. We're hoping to have it done in 24 months, so we have a 6-month leader there.
And then number 2, last page, if you're looking at grand totals, where there's a bullet, it's 420.05 equals 7.6% design phase services.
Which document are you in?
I'm in number 2, last page, there's not a number on it. The mock Bruce piece.
Oh, we're not, okay, we're on Matthews.
Okay, I thought we were at one point.
We were discussing all 3.
I thought we were discussing.
I don't have Matthews open.
Okay, well, and my last question would be, if we don't approve this tonight, you said it takes about 2 weeks to get our thought pattern put together and bring it back. Is that something we can do on the 10th? Because
It's
there
next
was,
week.
there was talk, okay, so
I can't get it done.
you can't get it back on the 10th, okay. Because it's gonna take 2 weeks. Okay.
And we have some negotiations I kind of need to get underway that we've been holding off on.
Well, that's what I was kind of going at, because we're not.
If you're considering postponing this item, I need to understand exactly, specifically, the point of contention that you have. Is it the number of times during the construction phase that you're seeing field visits? Is that the only issue?
No, we talked
Commissioner
about
Whitmore.
spelling out the deliverables in more detail and the schedule in more detail. Again, at a $350,000 contract, I think we want to, I think we've all expressed that it's important.
Vice Mayor.
We have, and it's primarily for the citizens, but it's more importantly, it was said earlier.
Well, is it beyond, and William, I can't see that fine print, but is that the deliverables in the schedule?
That's all the activities that Moss Bruce has in their contract,
Okay.
the dollar values next to them.
There's quite a level of detail that you may not be aware of, or I don't want to give the impression that it's sort of an
I think-
open-ended contract.
I think it's more in reference to the consulting portion of it, I don't
Right.
think it's
We
in
haven't
reference to the
looked at
mock roofs, yeah. I think it has to do with the consulting portion of it.
The
Well,
Matthews.
you know what a fan I am of consultants. Over the course of, no, I'm just kidding. I've always been a firm believer in, you know, why pay for things when we can do it in-house when we're paying people and qualified staff to do it. But there's certain things that are out of our control and out of our comfort zone, and those things we must recognize, and this happens to be one of those specific services. And I understand that and I get that. You know, there's penny wise, pound foolish, and this is one of those situations. So I'm totally fine with, you know, with this consulting contract. I think it's fair and reasonable to a certain extent in regards to the level of projects that we're looking at. I think just the oversight, I think it's of concern based on past experiences that we've had with other projects. To bring someone in to do that, I think there's just a little bit of hesitation probably because of that reason, of our past, maybe so to speak, mistakes that we've made. I think I think that based on having read through all the backup materials for this, that those items that we're asking for are actually included in the backup material. If you go through, you've got to find it because they're in 16 different places, but it's actually there. I think that through conversation we'd be able to move past this. I'm comfortable, and like I said, I'm not usually comfortable with these types of things, but I'm comfortable with the information having been there. I would, however, urge staff to try to reconsider. If you want to go back and hold it off for another time, that's fine with me too, but I understand, you know, that everything's pretty much in there. It's just, you know, the comfort level on the site visits and whatnot. I agree with you on that. It seems a little limited, but I also know that they're going to be on site. That is the amount of hours each week too, which, how do you differentiate between that?
There's two different types of site visits. There's the one from our owner's rep, which is Matthews, which is pretty extensive. It's 15 hours a week. And then there are periodic site visits from mock crews on an as-needed basis. If we have to have a special issue that they have to be brought in, they will come in. Also different from other projects the city's done, we have already created and been meeting on a fairly regular basis. The project's going to be headed up from a point person standpoint between myself and Mr. Johnson. We have representation from each one of the departments involved, which is very structured, and the team has been meeting since the beginning of the creation of the RFP, which unlike some other projects, was too loosey-goosey, and there was not a collaborative effort among the departments involved. So we have fixed that issue.
Okay.
And we have all been involved in negotiations of deliverables, the schedule, along with the city attorney's office, to ensure that we are getting all that we want and desire to provide a service that is desperately needed for the city.
Okay. City manager, go ahead.
No, I just, to follow up on that, when we started this process, as William just said, you know, we threw a considerable amount of brain power and staff time to not have this happen. And, with the exception of Mr. Easton. But we have this team that's come together and pulled this, and there's a lot of information, Mayor, I think you said this in there that you may not be aware of. So if it's a matter of rehashing some of this information a little more to make it more evident, we can postpone it, but we're talking about putting this into January.
Commissioner Zerdy?
I read it pretty thoroughly, and I agree with you, there's a lot of detail in here, to an extent. You might have to, you know, every person from the Matthews firm is identified of how many hours they're gonna spend on each particular task item. And that's back on, I guess would be the 13th page on there, right before their certificates of insurance here. And so, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with that. I know it's a lot of representation. We had another project that was similar to this projected budget in there not that long ago. And so, in that case, there was not a true owner's rep on the project. And that's where we got into issues. And so I think this is your efforts collectively to try to avoid what happened before, because staff was overwhelmed and inexperienced, to be frank. And so I feel that's why I just brought up the point with the mock roofs, and if we're not on that section yet, I don't need to go there, but that was the only thing that came up from my perspective that needs to be And I just don't want to see additional fees going out, because it's a pretty darn good fee the way it sits. It's near the 10% mark. You got a bunch of surveying that's in there too. You've got other components in there that are not typical, but permitting and so on. So, I mean, I think it's well covered. I think you all deliberated on this a number of times with your team. And so I would be for this. I just didn't personally want this thing to go where we just keep up, we get nickel and dime on this, all right? Because it's 20% of the scope. You add both of those contracts together, and that's a very healthy amount of percentage of a project, even though there are unusual things for negotiations with. So there's abnormal situations there that, I haven't seen, but it's important. So I would still be okay with this, as long as you all can assure that you can negotiate something that we don't really, on that participation from the engineer side, that we, we get representation there, they're at the field, at what you need, Mr. Johnson, or what you need, that they don't come back and, here we're rolling up, $1,000 a week extras because you need them to be there. Could add up quick over 30 months.
So is that your motion?
Oh, yeah, I would move to approve this with the ability to allow you all to tweak the negotiations, to not have the supervision on the job. I don't know, somebody's here earlier, there was, Tom, I don't know if you want to speak to that this time, if that's comfortable or not.
Is this so?
He's here more than once a month.
In regards to what?
Uh,
Matthews?
No, in
That's
his
what we're- isn't that what-
contract for the site visit.
There's three separate votes that are here in this motion, are there not?
I think Commissioner's talking about the Mockers.
Yes, I'm talking about number 2.
Number 2, okay, so we have a motion on number 1.
Okay. I would move
There's a
that.
motion needed on each 1, 2, and 3,
Yes.
Mr. Waters? Okay, so we're not on that one yet. We've got a motion on that, do I have a second? On the first item. Okay, public comment, actually, do we wanna do
Sorry.
public comment on all of the 3? Okay, sounds good, Mr. Tim? Followed by Mr. Tim, Mr. Tim.
Yes, yeah, no, I got 1, 2, and 3 in there.
Okay.
On this one, it's only 349.9, 350, but between the two, it's $1 million we're giving these people for something we've gotten 4 different times. We're all set. Remember, this is phase 1, right here. It says phase 1, Boutwell Road, 2nd Avenue North to 10th Avenue North. That's all this covers. For $5.5 million, they say they can do this. I have heard tonight nothing but maybe we can, maybe we can, maybe we can. There is no firm commitment that they're gonna get any money from anybody. I wanna hear a firm commitment that people are going to give us the money before I throw away $1 million that we don't have. Just to have another set of plans sit on a shelf, because we cannot afford to do this. This is something, it's a pipe dream, and it has been for a long time. This will work out to be worse than the beach project, and nothing could be much worse than that. Where the people that sat up there designed something that we don't want, they built something we don't want, and there's nothing we can do about it, because we haven't gotten the money from the county yet, because they have their strings all over that project. We're gonna go through the same thing with this if we approve this tonight. You don't have the knowledge of what is going on yet. You might have read all the forms and everything else that they put up there tonight, but there is a heck of a lot more after phase 1 that we should know about before we embark on this. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara Jean Weber?
It's easy to see what went into this and the efforts. But for those of you who haven't been here during the term of all of these commissioners, they went through a lot. They trusted individuals, they trusted information, it was flawed. So if anything, the commission is overcautious. If given that, it's appropriate. We have an architect up here. We have someone who took a lot of flack, including from me, and forgive me, I do it again, Commissioner Maxwell, regarding the beach project. This man repeated things for months on end, and I asked, dear city manager, dear Mr. Waters, and sir, forgive me, I didn't catch your name, that respect is given to this commission. As a resident, I want the certainty of what Commissioner Zerdy asked, that there are 2 visitations. Can these negotiations be changed? I have written down here the word certainty, specifics of performance. It needs to be clear, and if it has to be put in some other format so that I can catch up with your brains, then fine, please put it that way for me. But I ask that this commission be respected. We're lucky to have an architect. We're lucky to have a gentleman who sat through this what we went through with the beach. And as Mr. Tim said, which is true, it doesn't please everybody. Not that anything necessarily should, but you understand my point. So there needs to be a level of perseverance, respect what's being asked for, and frankly, I gently ask as a citizen, I expect that. And if 2 visits are wanted, I don't care how many it is a week, I want to see them. And if things have to be put in a different format so that I can read it, city manager, I don't doubt it's there, but I need your help in seeing it, and I thank all of you. Thank you.
I think everybody's kind of on the same page here in regards to it, if I may. It's just, like I said, we don't want to leave, somebody else to clean up a mess or a decision that we made. We demand, our constituents, our citizens and our business owners demand that we be accountable for every dollar. And that's what we face each and every day. We know these monies have been in place for a long period of time. We also know lots of promises have been made in regards to this property. This property has been talked about for a long time. There's no rubber stamp up here when it comes to anything. There's no, nobody wants to part with a dollar, Mr. Tim, especially when these monies have already been allocated for this project a long time ago. And to get shovel ready, we know all the opportunities we've missed out on because of not being shovel ready. And half of our city sits in disrepair because we never made the advances that our neighbors around us made in getting shovel ready and doing the things, the infrastructure things that were needed to take them to the next level. So we sit as an antiquated town with a lot of problems that have been overlooked and the carpet thrown over them for a long period of time. We can't do that. We also can't not be responsible and expect accountability. And we're going to expect it up here from this dais, as long as I'm sitting here, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners feel the same way. We can't make mistakes. We don't have time, we don't have money to make any mistakes. So if we question things, forgive us. It's our job to do that because we're watching every stinking dollar as it goes or comes in or goes out. And this is too important a project. The future of our city depends on us bringing in those jobs and economic development and opportunities for every citizen, no matter where they are in the city. And it's too big, it's too important for us not to care about it. We're expecting, if we're going to spend money on consultants, we're going to spend money on outside contractors, we're going to spend money, we demand to make sure that we're meeting those marks, just like any corporation does. We have to have the deliverables, we have to know when they're going to happen, and we're going to hold everybody to the fire on these things because we have to be right now. We can't afford mistakes. We can't say, oopsie, there's another one, oopsie, a couple million here, a couple million there. It's just municipal government, a couple million. We can't do it anymore. No one's going to tolerate it anymore. And we're certainly not going to from up here. So forgive us if, and I know that you're new. So, it's just, we all have our feet held to the fire every single day with the phone calls we get, the emails we get, whatever. But also we're residents too. And we're paying for it like everybody else is too. So we're doing it for ourselves selfishly as well as everybody else in the thing, because we're all in it together. Vice Mayor?
Well said, Madam Mayor. And when you mentioned watching every dollar and we can't afford to get it wrong, from my perspective, the city of Lake Worth is not gonna pay for mistakes and errors made by any consultants going forward. I'm not suggesting that would be the case, but, I mean, I think when things don't go right sometimes, and they have to take a little bit more time to get something done because there was a miscue or a misstep, we end up getting billed for that, okay? But those days are over. We need to get this right, we need to know what the deliverables are, and which segues to my next question. What is the downside to giving us 2 weeks to get those deliverables in a format that Ms. Weber, or anyone else for that matter, would feel comfortable with?
Yeah, and I don't want you to, it sounds like, listen to everyone talk, that somehow staff is being incalcitrant about trying to push this through. We're really not. We're happy to go back through and provide this information and examine these different things. That's not a problem, so we can move this to January. Unless there's something
I
that's-
personally, I'm comfortable with it because it's all in the backup document. The information is there. I think that what we're doing is we've been so busy, and this is nothing of your fault at all, we've been so busy fixing and refinancing and paying off and doing the things of the past that we had no control over. This one's our baby. You know what I mean? This is one that we don't want to leave to the people after us to say, ooh, look at the oopsie they made. We just want to make sure that we're you know, what we can be responsible for, these decisions that we make now that affect the future, that we're doing it right from the beginning. Honestly, that's what I personally believe. And I'm okay with the contract.
Okay, well, and to reassure you, we're painfully aware of some of the issues in the city. Because, you know, we're up to our necks in resolving issues that have been, as you said, the carpet's been put over. So from our whole approach in this and re-examining what's been happening to now, you know, we feel we've put a lot of due diligence in it to get to this point. So giving you the information and bringing back regular reports, having the consultants come here, I'm sure Matthews would be happy to come to periodic commission meetings, and let's have that discussion and keep y'all very, as well as the public, in the loop of what's going on. That's definitely, we should do that. Is there anything else that, at this point, that we can provide to make you more comfortable at this point?
Where is representative from Matthews tonight?
I'm not sure.
Well, you know, I've said this many times over the years. You know, it's amazing how folks are, you know, tripping all over themselves to get municipal work for hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions of dollars. And they can't even send somebody out here to listen to what our concerns are, what we've been through and where we need to go, you know. I'm sorry, you made the comment about they'd be happy to come out periodically. Well, I mean, we really appreciate that. We appreciate that they could take some time out of their busy schedule to come out and, you know, and let us know what's going on. Those days are over in this city. We are not. You gotta just write checks to people because.
And that's not what we're proposing here, Commissioner, and
Well,
I,
a little bit.
Commissioner McCoy?
I mean, I have to say that I'm somewhat sympathetic to Commissioner Maxwell's concern that